whip him like a dog. David Crockett being as unbiased as he always was. Wait, I meant totally biased, but he was still entertaining as fuck. I'm Charles Rentham with the retro review of NWA Superstars on the Superstation. Bit of a quick history. I will say right now, though, that Jim Cornette and his co-host Great Brian last covered this on Cornette's podcast because Cornette would know about that because he was at this event and he was in Jim Crockett Promotions for a number of years. And that's all been covered. But the whole point is this stuff, just looking at it as a fan, was a big goddamn deal. Now, 35 years after the fact, some aspects of this event do hold up. The first match in particular, I really fucking love. The other matches were of varying quality. By 1986, every major territory was, either totally on a decline, out of business, or in the case of like World Class Mid-South and AWA, they were doing a little bit of business, but not nearly what they did. And the only one within spitting distance was Jim Crockett Promotions that was doing great in the Carolinas and various southern states, that is, as well as some of the cities they had in the Northeast. And Vince McMahon, of course, saw that that was going on. It's like, I got to put a stop to this, pal. So he did Survivor Series 87 against Starrcade 87 and threatened the cable companies with pulling Mania 4. Which was stupid by the cable companies. How would you have not known that Vince McMahon would have been shooting himself in the foot by doing that? But it is what it is. And then also he put on the Royal Rumble as a free TV special against Bunkhouse Stampede just a couple months later. So Crockett and Turner fired back with the first Clash of Champions against Mania 4 just a couple months later. And, man, that could be a whole hour to just talk about all that bullshit, just as a fan seeing that fucking bullshit that Vince pulled. But it is what it is. I do wish that this style of wrestling was still around, though, because the energy, the fucking crowd was fucking tremendous. I mean, the Omni in Atlanta was a great hotbed for wrestling. They had a lot of great events there, and this one was no exception. Not the greatest event in the world, but as far as a TV special, it was a big fucking deal. The dark matches, by the way, were Ron Bass versus the Barbarian, a 15-minute time limit draw, which doesn't sound like, exactly great. Nothing against Ron Bass and the Barbarian, but I don't think a singles match for that long was a great idea. Baron Von Raschke beat the Italian Stallion in about 7 minutes, and Jimmy Valiant beat Arn Anderson via disqualification just under 13 minutes. And then we get Magnum TA and Linda. I didn't catch her last name. A lot of huge hair, and that was just on Magnum. Seriously, so much 80s hair. My God. We get Tony Schiavone and David Crockett on commentary. Cornette introduces the Midnight Express, Condrey and Eaton. This would be... Stan Lee wouldn't come in until sometime in, the spring of 87, which Condrey and Eaton were a really great goddamn team. And there's Rock and Roll Express, who were the NWA Tag Team Champions against the Midnight Express with Cornette. And they had done a lot of shit kicking off this program, this feud. Just the stuff they had done, and Morton and Gibson wanted revenge, and fucking hell, the crowd loved the Rock and Roll Express. They went electric during this, and I'd say this is the loudest they actually were. I'm not saying they weren't loud in other matches, but this was the loudest because they fucking loved the rock and roll. And, the pacing was great, double team maneuvers by the Rock and Roll Express, and what I did fucking love, though, it has a classic line that I said in the very beginning, whip him like a dog, because Cornette had been whipping, using his belt to, whip Gibson and Morton, and then, they got him in there, and then that line was said, and then we get a ref bump, and we get the racket shot, and then Eaton pins Morton 1, 2, 3. One thing about Bobby Eaton, though, if you want to see classic Bobby Eaton, seeing the shit he did here, he did incredible work. Like, the knee drop off the top, how crisp he did that. The leg drop. No wonder he had difficulty walking by the late 90s, early 2000s. Because even though he did that stuff perfectly and took the impact as best as he could, just watching, the stuff he did, no wonder he had those problems. But still, watching Eaton and Condrey wrestle, Dennis Condrey wrestle, they did so much great work. And they won the NWA Tag Team Championships and would hold them for another 6 months before dropping them back to the Rock and Roll Express. And then they would kick off that feud with the Road Warriors. That was really good shit. This was the best goddamn match on the show, in my personal opinion. I love tag team wrestling, and this was tag team wrestling done right. We cut to Magnum and Linda. She tried, but she just didn't seem like she really knew what the fuck was going on. Then we had the Road Warriors with Ellering versus Ivan and Nikita Koloff. It was a power battle. It wasn't great. It wasn't because it was just kind of a match to just keep their program going. And then Von Raschke attacks from behind while the referee is distracted. And then later we get a DQ because he just jumps back in because they're like, shit, we need to do something. And then They're pounding away on the Hawk. Good line, David. And then we get a melee with the Russian chain afterwards. It was what it was. It wasn't great, but it was what it was. Magnum interviews Benny Parson, who was a NASCAR guy. It happened. I'm not familiar with NASCAR, or at least this guy in NASCAR, but apparently he did really well. One line, though, from Magnum that proved kind of eerie, given what happened later. I wouldn't mind getting in one of those race cars. You know, his auto accident that happened a number of months later. And I'm not saying that, I'm not, mocking, but Magnum, it's just eerie knowing what would happen to Magnum just a number of months later when he was going to become NWA champion, possibly. Boy, that's just really eerie, isn't it? Really strange how life works. Real shame how he got cut down in the prime of his career. But anyway, we get Magnum talking about Dusty, how he's friends with Dusty, and then we cut to Dusty and Willie Nelson doing an interview done by Shivani about the remake of Stagecoach. This was something. I wonder how high Willie Nelson was. So, that's really all I got to say about that. I mean, it was cool. It was cool to see a celebrity there. It was. This is a big deal because Vince was known for celebrities, and this was a way for Crockett to say, hey, we know some people too. We know celebrities. We know people too. We can still have a... No. Dusty with Baby Doll. A perfect 10. Apparently, everybody in the decade of the 80s was coked out of their goddamn mind. Now, if you found Baby Doll attractive, that's fine. But even looking back on it, even when I was 15 years old watching, old NWA stuff, and even now, I don't fucking get it. That's so much goddamn blush. Holy fucking shit. It was like, you want to talk about rosy goddamn cheeks. It was fucking insane. Anyway, Dusty took on Tully Blanchard with J.J. Dillon. NWA National Championship. Not Nationalist Championship like, Tully's daughter would want to win. So, it was good energy. We think it a lot of leg focus. It was leg focus the musical. Holy fuck, was there a lot of leg focus in this match. And the last few minutes at least got somewhat energetic. We got to a time limit draw. This wasn't bad. I mean, Dusty was the champion. He would obviously lose the championship later. But just, I don't know. Something about this didn't click. Like, I understood why they did a time limit draw. They didn't want to have Tully lose. They didn't want to have Dusty lose the championship here because they wanted to build up Dusty and Ric Flair for the NWA championship. But this went too long. This went way too long, in my opinion. Magnum TA interviews Jim Crockett. Deer in the headlights. He really had deer in the headlights look. Family history in wrestling. We get a plug for the Jim Crockett Senior Memorial Cup, which I reviewed last year. That was a 4-hour show with a lot of tag team wrestling, and they cut off some of the matches. If they had the whole goddamn thing, it would have been like a 6-hour event. That was a hard event to review. Some of it was good, some of it wasn't. We cut to Joel Watts, son of Bill Watts, and Bob Johnson, EVP of Superdome, that is. Well, these two guys shouldn't have been on television. So anyway, Shivani talks to Gaylord Perry, and MLB Great. That was cool. We then get Ron Garvin versus Ric Flair, NWA Championship. TV time remaining. 16 minutes, by the way. That's what it was. It was 16 minutes. Well, actually, like the last minute and a half was, to talk about, oh no, Ric Flair escaped with the championship, and then they cut to the credits. I wonder who Virgil Runnels was. Dusty, by the way. That's why they gave him the credit, so they didn't say, oh, Dusty Rhodes is running the show himself, even though some fans would know. Pace is good. He's got him by the honker. It's another David Crockett line. As expected, they laid the shit in. Garvin and Flair always worked well together. And then we get a ref bump later. Hands of stone, but no ref. Oh, no. And then Flair hits a knee to the back and then covers while Tommy Young is on the opposite side of Rick, so he counts the shoulders. Garvin gets his foot on the rope at 2, but then Flair pulls it off and, oh, no, what the hell are you doing? Oh, no, his foot was on the rope. And David's yelling, and Flair hears it like, shut up! Just yelling at him. I don't know why that made me laugh. But this is a big goddamn deal. This is a big event. It was really cool. The only match really that you need to see, I mean, you could see the last match. You could see the first match. Absolutely. The tag team match is fucking great. I hate to say it. The rest of it is, it's not a wash necessarily, but it wasn't for me. But it was a big goddamn deal as far as, the NWA showing that they were a big national platform, or at least as national as they could be. Anyway, agree, disagree with what I said. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Rethlin. I'll see you soon.